For the previous session, we thought of discussing geolocation, drag and drop, and web storages today, right? But I just want to start these topics once JavaScript is started or at the end of JavaScript. Why? Because these are interlinked with the scripting. Okay, so I don't want to jump into scripting right now. So what we will do is we'll start the CSS today. Okay, we'll jump into CSS and we'll start with the selectors topic today. So what is mean by CSS basically? Or what is the purpose of CSS? Even HTML is helping me to design my web page, right?
It makes web page more interactive.
No. Styling. Okay. So interactive in the sense CSS is not making an interactive. It's just making it to look more beautiful. That's it. So JavaScript is the one which is helping us to interact with the web page or the web application. So here CSS is like a skin tone to a skeleton. Okay, so if you see HTML is a skeleton, the muzzle and everything is the CSS to your skeleton. Got it? Okay, so how CSS will help us? So by using HTML, we may create the what we can create layout, we can create or whatever we require, we may create. But to make it look more prettier and to make it look more user friendly to the user, to attract the users, we definitely need the CSS. What is meant by CSS? Cascading style sheet. So which version we are currently using? Third version. Okay. So if we go with the third version of CSS, we got many advantages compared to the previous versions of CSS. Okay. So like what we got more browser compatibility, and also we got more layout systems like flexible, flex, and grid. These came with CSS3, which are made a huge change in the web development of applications. Got it? So now let's go with the selectors. So we already discussed what selectors will do, right? So what is the purpose of the selectors? What is the purpose of selectors? Tell me what is the purpose of selectors? Pardon? I didn't get you. Exactly. Selector is nothing but just to select the element. Okay, even you don't know that also. In each and every class we use selectors, right? So far. What you did these 2 days? Saturday, Sunday. Kana, pina, sona. Right? Is it what you people did? I just asked a simple question. I didn't ask what are the selectors available. I just asked what is meant by selector. Simple answer. Selectors helps us to select an element. That also I need to ask you again and again. Okay. So CSS selectors will help us to select the elements. Okay. So far we have already discussed few types of selectors. What are the selectors? ID, which will be indicated by which tag? Hash tag. So second one will be, so which it can be indicated by. So what is the third one? So it can be indicated by individual tag names. Okay. So let's go with the fourth one. Child selector. Okay. So child selector we have already used in multiple cases in the previous while discussing with the tags here. Okay. So child selector is nothing but selecting an element in a nested way. For example, okay. So is it? Just imagine this is my parent element. Okay. If it have a sub element, okay. So let me choose in this way. I have sub elements. In the same way, okay. So let me have one more. So here, okay. So change. So for example, just imagine this is my parent. Okay. For example, I have a child inside of it. So let me create one more child also. Okay, just imagine I have two childs. So now what child selector will do is it will give me the privilege of selecting child element which is directly available with the parent. That means, for example, if I want to select this element, which is this particular element, so for example, it is the parent, which is the direct child to this element, this blue one and this yellow one. These two are the direct childs to my parent. What about these? These are the direct childs to the parent? No, these are the sub-child, right? For which element these are childs, direct childs? Blue. For blue one, it is a direct child, right? So what this child selector will do is it will help us to select the element directly by using the parent-child relation. So that means, for example, if you see, let me take a UL. Okay. So if I take a LI, 1, 3, 4. Okay. So I'll do one more thing. Okay, within this, I'll create one more OL. Okay. LI, OL, return. Okay. So now what I'll do, so now let me go with child. So the child selector will be selected by using a symbol called greater than it. Okay. So now let us check this output in the browser. So this is how my output is coming, right? All are in black color. So now let us go with the child selector. So what type of CSS I'm using here? Internal type of CSS. So now if I use UL and if I write something, so for which element it will apply? For the UL element. But if I want to select the LI element, what I need to do? If I give like this and let me give color as red. Okay. And if I go to the browser, so what happened? All my elements, whether it is there within the OL or within the UL, all elements got into the red color. Why? Because these are, I'm just what I'm doing, I'm selecting all the elements which are there in UL. Okay. So even that OL is also comes under UL only, right? Under the ULLI. So for example, I make a small change like this, UL greater than LI. Okay. So now if you go and see, still I was getting the same color. Why? What is the condition I was mentioning here? So I want to make red color to all the elements which is directly relation with the UL element. That means to the parent. So here all these elements, even this li is directly to the parent or not. So whichever content comes under this, it will directly go to the which one? Automatically to the same condition, to this condition only. So as the element, whatever the element it may be, whether it is inside or outside, so when I was accessing the parent, if it is a text element, directly it will select all the content. If in this place, for example, I have a div or something, so in such cases what happens? Still it works. Why? Because child selector, generally what it will do, it will select the child on from parent to child direct one. But whenever I have some content, text content within the child element, it applies to that particular child also. For example, if I make a small change like, okay, I given like this. So now if you see what happened, it selected only the OL items. Okay. So here I given OL LI direct relationship. Okay. But here these all are directly, just give me a minute. Okay, child. Okay. So if you see child parent and child relation, what it will child selector, it will select all the elements which are there under this child. It is same work as the normal tag selector only, but what is the only difference here? Previously, when you select like UL space LI, what happening here? It is selecting all the elements, even if it was doing the same, but there is no relation there. But here we are clearly mentioning if it have a direct relation, then only it should work. For example, just imagine under UL, let me create a paragraph. Okay. And let me create a OL and let me create a LI. Okay. The item. Okay. So if I check with the, so now what I am getting? So I am getting these item completely. Why? Because these are directly to the childs to the OL. But let us get back to our previous change like UL. So now what I'm mentioning select the LI items which are directly to the parent. Okay, connectable. But if you see here, so this all the LAs are directly connected to this UL. But here if you see, is this LI directly connected to this UL? Why? Because there is a block. Parent is the one tag I used. Sorry, P tag, not the LI tag. So now it doesn't have any relation with this or direct relation. So this LI parent is OL and OL parent is paragraph and paragraph parent is UL. Okay, so UL child is P now. So if I go back here, so if you see what happened now. So these items are these items getting selected? No, why? Because these items don't have a direct relation with my parent there. Got it? So here I missed one of the selector actually. The first selector is not this one. The first one is the universal selector, we call it as. So universal selector. So it will be indicated with star. Okay. So what this universal selector will do is, and which scenarios will use this in. For example, you want to make some changes to your whole document. So what type of changes you need for your whole document? Example. Hmm? No, not borders.
Adding some
Font style maybe. Remember font style. By default, there will be one font to your whole web application. If you want to make some changes to your whole application, then what you need to do? You need to select each and every element that is created. Okay. Font styles. And if you want to apply any particular typographies, okay. So under typographies, you'll get many things. Okay. Margins like that, many things you'll get. Okay. But we never use these typographies to most of the times to the universal selector. The universal selector mostly we'll use for defining the layout of the web page or defining the font style, these type of things. For example, how I can use this universal selector. So we check here. That. That's it. So there is no particular element I'm selecting. So if you see the difference between the other selector and this selector, what is the major difference? So other selectors, other elements I want to select here individually. But here I was selecting the whole document. So whatever the changes I give here, it is going to apply to the whole document. Got it? So let me give some change, like let me give color as green. Okay. So now if I go here, so if you see, now if you see, there is a interesting thought happen here. So previously these elements are in which color? Red color, but now it converted into which color? Why? Because previously I was using one rule, that is parent child rule. So it have a powerful of child also selecting subchilds. But when I was using a universal selector, it tries to overcome all the rules. In such cases, it can override the default powerful rules. That means these elements whichever are red color, these are directly to the parent, right? So these are directly to the UL. But if you see, these are not directly to the UL. So that is not that much powerful as child selector. Child selector is not that much enough power to overcome the universal selector. That's why universal selector, what it is doing, the universal selector just overriding that child selector rule and giving a green color to this element. So now whatever the element I may create, what happens? It will all have green color only until unless I give some for other selector if I use and give a styles to it. For example, let me change the font style to it. Okay, font family. Okay, let me give a font family of okay. So if you see, is my font style changed or not? If you see, my font style is already changed here. So how you can check? Let me open developer tools. Okay. So as if you see, if I select any element, I will get these rules. Why? Because these rules are getting to each and every element that I create in HTML. So if you see here, see, is my font styles are changed or not? So that's how my universal selector will work. So my universal selector main agenda is to select if I want to apply some properties to each and every element that I create in my web application. So in such cases, I'll use my universal selector. Got it? So next one is the child selector, right? So was done. So is it, are you able to understand what child selector will do? Anybody have any doubt? Online people or offline people? Anybody have any doubts? Is it clear? Okay. So next, let me go with the next one. Attribute selector. Attribute selector. So how we can use the attribute selector is, so attribute name and value. So based on this only, we'll use this selector. So what you are able to understand by seeing this attribute selector, basically, what you understood? So attribute selector is nothing but selecting an element by using the attribute and at its value. For example, okay, so let me create a paragraph and let me create duplicates and let me give class as para. Okay. So now I have an attribute called para, which is into a class one. Okay. So now if I go back here, if you see, still all are getting the green color only. Why? Because still my universal selector is getting applied. So we need to get rid of this one because it will affect other things. So now if you see, now I have 4 paragraphs. Now let's go with the, which one? Attribute selector. So as I mentioned, attribute selector is nothing but selecting an element by using its attribute and value. For example, if I give like paragraph color as green, so what happens? It is going to select each and every paragraph that I am going to get in my whole web page, right? But I give a simple attribute value here within the close brackets. Class is equal to, what is our class name? Para. So now if I save it and go back, so now what happened? It selected only the elements which have an attribute called para. So even if it have a class, it doesn't mean. It depends on the both attribute name and the attribute value. Both should match. Okay. So as per the match I given, the attribute should be class and the class value should be para. Right. If both these cases matches, then only those elements will get this property value color. Got it? So where we use this mostly? So for forms, majorly, usually the forms and inputs will not take the CSS directly sometimes, like inputs and placeholder, this and all. So in such cases, we'll use these attribute selectors to select the attribute by using the particular type, or for example, if you take input, if you want to select a particular input or if you want to make some individual changes to the inputs, how you can do? You can't do anything. You can't give individual class to each and every element. But instead of that, what you can do, for example, if you want to make text area, I want to make height of 100 px everywhere, wherever you use the input. So what I can do, input attribute will be text area, value will be 100 px, or else input type is equal to, input type is equal to text area. I'll give height as 100 px. So wherever I have input and if it is type as is text area, automatically what happens? It will take 100 px. So attribute selector is not only about class ID, any attribute you can use. Okay, if you go with the further, for example, source, src, okay, width, height, any attribute that you can give to your HTML element which have a proper value. So definitely you can use all those stuff, attributes and values, to use this attribute selector to select that particular element. Clear? Anybody have any doubts with this attribute selector? Pardon? Attribute selector. Okay. So whenever you want to select an element by using the attribute name and value, okay, instead of directly selecting here, instead of directly selecting paragraph, what I'm using? I'm using a class and its value. Okay. So due to this, what is the result I got? So in my whole HTML file, wherever I have a paragraph with the attribute called class and that attribute value is para, so that all elements will be selected now by using this attribute selector. So if I use, for example, li also I can use. What I can use? Let me use. Okay. Yeah, class of id I'll use. id as list. Okay. So now what I can do? Let me do li, right? So li, and what I need to do? Which attribute I given there? ID. So what is the value I given? List. So what I'll do? I'll make its color as yellow. So if I go back, so if you see only this particular item is getting yellow color. Got it? Is it clear now? So is the attribute selector is clear? So under attribute selector, we have many other conditions also you will get. Okay, if you go in depth, for example, attribute selectors, what you will get? Where is it? Attribute name. Where is it? Cap. Okay. Cap, by using this cap, okay, it will work in one way. Attribute values also, based on the symbol that you give before the equal, each one plays a different way. Okay. For example, what these attribute selectors, what is the purpose of giving these type of caps? Like also you will get star, you will get the asterisk, these symbols and all. What this will do is, generally we have different types of selectors, and each selector we are using the have what we'll have. Each selector will have a symbol, right? So sometimes instead of using the name, what I can do, I can directly use the symbol, okay, of particular selectors and give the value, okay, attribute name, symbol and value. There what happening, I'm combining, okay, child selector, how it is working, interlinked with parent and child. In such time, in the same way, if you go in the advanced level of CSS, no need at the present level, but if you go to advanced level, so attribute selectors works with even symbols. We can merge multiple elements by using this attribute selector. Also I can use child selector, I can use at the same time tag selector. These all three can be merged into a single selector. Okay. For example, what is the purpose of this is, for example, just imagine I have a list item, like I have a paragraph with class name of para. I have 10 elements, but in that I need to select only 3 elements which have a ID of para1. Okay, 10 elements I have the same class, but within the 10 elements I want to select only 3 elements which have the ID, but I don't want to use the ID selector here. I want to use the attribute selector. Just imagine. So in such cases, what I can do, I can use both combination selectors. Okay, I can use the first type. What I'll do, I'll select the paragraph with class equal to para. Then I'll give a condition by using this symbol, mentioning that I want to select only ID one, which have a ID. I no need to mention the value there. So what is the advantage is using this combination attribute selectors is, we'll use the attribute name and attribute value, but whatever the combination selector we are using, for the selector we don't need to mention any value. For example, I'm selecting by using ID, I'll just mention which have a ID. For example, I'm selecting and using any other attribute, it should have a image tag. Like that, I'll use a tag, sorry, that attribute name particularly. Okay, so it will be little confusing now if you check, but once you are clear with all the 12 types of selectors, try to go in depth with attribute selectors. Clear? So this is also one type of selector, selecting an element by using the attribute. Okay. So next one is the seventh one, right? So grouping selectors. So anybody have any idea what is meant by grouping selector? For example, just imagine I have paragraphs and I have H1. I don't want H1, H3. Okay. So H3, H4 I'll give. Okay. So here, along with this particular this item, I want to apply this color green to H3, H4, H5 also. In such cases, what happens? Again, I need to write rule like H3 and color as green. And in the same way, I need to repeat for H4 and H5 also. But instead of rewriting my code, the best code is always about avoiding the overcode, rewriting of code, multiple lines of code. So what I can use here, this color green is I needed. I have only one property here. If I have any other properties, I need to write another class, but I have only one property here. So what I can do, I can use the same property here by using comma. Now if I give H3 comma, H4 comma, H5. So now what happens? Wherever I have H3, H4, H5, for all those elements, I'll get my green color. Not only green color, whatever the properties I write here, that all properties will apply to this. So this rule is not only for the element selectors. For example, you have an attribute selector here, then I have a child selector, right? I want color as pink. So if you see, it even selected the not only the direct elements. For example, now let me pick these and all and keep it here. Now if you go and see, it get applied everywhere. So basically what this group selector will do, so it will help us to you give same properties to multiple selectors. So whether it is id, class, pseudo element, or any selector, it may be attribute selector, anything, you can select them all together by just using one comma. Okay, the comma mentions that, so I already have a few properties and I want to give to you also. I also want to take those properties, so I'll just put a comma and I'll include my selector there, whether it is a tag selector, ID selector, or class selector, any selector it may be. I'll just mention it there. So what happens? Automatically, it is going to get applied to all the elements. Okay. Just imagine there is a scenario like, instead of this, for example, here I have some like border of 20 px. Okay. So now, where is it? Okay, didn't mention. Okay, given like this. So I want the color to my heading items, but I don't want the border. What you will do? As per we discussed, if I give here like comma h3, comma h4, comma h5, what happens? Headings also will get the border. So in these cases, what I need to do? I definitely need to avoid this one because I have multiple properties here, which is I don't require. So for example, if I require border also, in such case, I can write here. As I didn't require border, definitely I need to go with the new selector and new group selector only for this one. Now I have to give again color as green. Okay. So now if you see, I am getting only green color. So even though I have a property where I given color green, I can't use this one for group selector. Why? Because it have one more property which is nothing but border, which I don't want to use to my elements. Got it? So this is how my group selector will work. Got it? So yeah. So next we'll go with the descendant selector. So this is what we are using from past starting. We already used many times. Descendant selector. So if you see here, till now grouping selector also have one structure indicated by comma, right? Attribute have one structure, child have one structure. So we have different structures that we have. But descendant selector will never have a particular order. Okay. So descendant selector you can use any way that you want. For example, descendant selector is nothing but if you see the previous selectors in we have used, what we used, we directly used not here tags, right? See ul space li. So this is also one of the descendant selector. Okay. For example, now let us do one thing. What is this? Yeah. So select now if you see now, for example, I want to select this particular li. Okay. So what I'll do, now I need to go step by step back. So what is the parent to this Li? OL, right? So first I'll go, sorry. So let me go step by step. So Li. So before that, what I have? OL. Before that OL, what is the parent I have? P tag. So before that P, what is the parent I have? UL. So now, for example, so let me give color as, okay. Within the ULP, within the PLPO, where is applying or what? Getting applied. There is some mistake happened. Okay. So usually P will not allow within the UL directly. So if you see, there is a correction in my web application. So even though I given my OL within the P, but how it is taking? It is taking P as a separate element and it is taking OL within the that one. Got it? So my LI is getting cleared here, but my P is and OL is completely different elements. But as per the code I have written, it is selecting that particular element. So that's why it is not working. So now if I give UL, OL, LI. So if you see what happening, color green is applying or not. For example, I'll make one more thing like what we can give. Simply to say any pattern that you can use in the sense. For example, I have a paragraph. Okay. For example, UL I have, and I need to select the LI which have an ID of list. Okay. Not all the LIs. So what I can do, LI hashtag list, right? Is it our clear color is visible green? Or else let me change the color to which color is visible more. Right. So if you see, is the red color is applying or not? So what I did here, so I was selecting whichever the list is there within the OL. So what is the difference between a child and a descent selector is, so child selector will tell that whichever have a direct relation with me, like my child, select those elements only. But descendant selector is not like that. It will tell, for example, I am a paragraph and within me, I have a, let me draw it and tell me clearly. So for example, it is my one parent. Okay. I have multiple childs here. Okay. So within those childs, I have multiple sub childs if you imagine. Okay. Okay. Now, for example, I have one element within this. Within this, I have one element. Now you people tell me, if I want to select this green element, how you can select? Let me give tag names also to each of these. Okay, let me give a text. So it is a div. It is a section. It is one section. It is one section. Okay. And this orange one is the, let me give paragraph. Okay, this orange one is a paragraph. And this green one is a anchor tag. You know anchor tag, right? So A tag. A and A. So now if you see, there is a div. Within the div, I have three sections, right? So within that each section, I have a paragraphs. All those are three are paragraphs. Okay. I divided and I want to select this particular anchor element, this green element I need to select. How you will select? As per discussed, whatever the selectors still know, how you will select it? Tell me. Okay, let's select anchor tags in each and every section. How we will select? I want to select all the anchor tags which are there within the paragraphs. That means in these green boxes I need to select. Just come step by step. Which is the parent, which is the sub-parent, which is the child, which is grandchild. Divide in that way. So how I will select? So if I want to select, what I'll do? First I'll start with parent. So what is the parent there? Div. So within that, what I need to select? Section. So when I tell that div space section, I'm mentioning that select all the sections which is there within my div. There is no particular relation, whether it is there directly to me or indirectly to me, anywhere it may be. So even if the section is there here also, okay, let me do one thing. Let me make this anchor. Instead of anchor, let me make it as section. Okay. It is not an anchor. Let me make it as a section. So now, if I give like div space section and border as 10px, what happens? Or else, yeah, border as 10px. So what happens?
It will apply border to section.
So which section it will apply? Tell me by using the color border at least there.
No.
Which one, yellow or green? For which element it will apply? What about green element?
Direct
So it will not apply, right? Keep your brain in the dustbin, go and keep in dustbin. So that's what I'm mentioning from past 10 minutes. Difference between a child and a descendant. So whatever you mentioned is a child selector behavior. What descendant selector will tell? It doesn't care about relationship. Okay. Whether if it is there inside a paragraph, inside an anchor tag, inside a div or anywhere it may be. It will only check whether I was there within a div or not. So I was mentioning select a section which is there within a div. So for example, if I have one more div also, there is one more section within the div. It is going to apply there also. So that's that much powerful, the descendant selector. That's why I said there is no particular pattern for a descendant selector. So when I use div space section, it is going to select this particular yellow color section. Each and every section it will give border, and also it will give border to the this one also, which is there within that section also. So it doesn't matter whether it's a direct relation or indirect relation. It is going to select all the elements. But I want to select only this element. So what I need to do? Div space section. Then what is the next element? Paragraph. So within the paragraph, I have a section. So now if I give, what happens? Now tell me which element it is going to select. Only the green element. It is not going to select any other sections. Why? Because Here I'm mentioning a path. I'm telling, before I was telling, for example, take an example. I picked a class and I told that select all the people who are wearing a green dress. Okay, just imagine green dress. So for example, there are 10 people. Okay, all the 10 people I was picking up. But I want to select only a particular person who is in a third row. Just imagine. So what I can tell? First condition is classroom. Second condition is which row he is. And third condition is the color, green color. So if you see, even the third row have two different people with green dress. So I want to select a particular person by using his position, first or second or third. So what I can do? My first condition is again classroom, direct to the classroom who is there in the within the classroom, who is there in the third bench, third row. Okay. So whichever the who is the person is there in the third row, I'm going to select all the person in third row. Within the third row, I have selected already everyone. I'm going to filter particular seat number. For example, I want a third seat number. I was filtering that third seat number. Okay. First, what I'm doing, if I have a 10 classes, I was filtering one particular class. In that particular class, I want to filter within that class also particular row. In that particular row also, again, I need to filter particular seat. In that particular seat also, I can't select directly. For example, if I give an seat 2, okay, in that seat 2, I want to select green color. So just imagine that person is wearing red color. So it will not work out. That means, for example, if I give like section I given here, instead of this section, before this section, if I have a instead of section, I have a tag. So is it going to work out? To the section is it going to apply? It will not apply. Why? Because there is no anchor tag here. Actually, there is a section. So what happens? This property is a useless now. Whatever you return is useless because I was trying to select the anchor tag which is there within a paragraph, which is there within a section, which is there within a div. But there is no anchor tag there. Only what I have here is section. So when I give section, then only this particular CSS selector is going to work out, or else it is a useless selector for me in my CSS. Got it? So that's how my descendant will work. So there is many other ways also descendant will work. For example, I given P of paragraph class para. Sometimes we need to select the paragraphs. I want to select, but I also want to select only which have a class of para. So I can use this way also, sorry, para. So what it means is, I'm selecting a paragraph and it should have a definitely, it should have a class of paragraph. Online people are able to see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I want to select only para. So let me give border as PX solid orange. If you see, only that particular paragraph is selected or not, which have a class of para, right? Two elements have class para. For example, now let me give class para to this also. Class of para. So is it going to get applied with the border or not? Why it will not get border? So it is not a paragraph. Even though its class is para, the element is not a P tag. It is a H tag, right? But what I mentioned, I clearly mentioned it should have a paragraph and whose class is para. Okay. The dot indicates the selector symbol. Got it? So this is also one type of pattern I can use for descendant. So descendant pattern will change based on the user usage. However you want to use that selector, in that way the descendant selector will change it. Okay, that is why descendant selector is one of the powerful selector and the most useful selector that we'll use in the CSS. You can change it to any way, however you want to use. Got it? So that's why there is no particular pattern. Clear? So descendant selectors can be mixed with multiple selectors also. Okay. So if you go in depth, try to use work more on this descendant selector. Try to include the descendant selector with multiple selectors. Okay. Then you will understood how powerful this selector is. Clear? Any doubts? Online people, anybody have any doubts? I'm asking you people, anybody have any doubts?
No.
So clear, right? So now let's go with one more selector. ID class is done. Next I can go with sibling and general sibling adjustments. Okay, so next I'll go with 9th step of selector. Sibling selectors, that is, okay, give me a minute. Okay. So let me give it general sibling selector. Okay. So the general sibling selector is indicated with which symbol? Hmm? Anybody have idea? Plus or what is that symbol will called as asterisk, I guess. Plus or asterisk. Asterisk is nothing but that snake symbol which comes under escape keyword. Okay. So plus or asterisk. Sure. Pakka. Mouse, yeah. Is my mouse? Okay, yes, got it. Yeah. So general sibling selector, right? Adjacent sibling selector. Okay. So 1 second. Yeah. So now what I'll do? Let me do one thing. Which is the last H5 I have here, right? So let me give a div. Okay. So within this div, let me create a paragraph. So lorem 5. Okay. So let me duplicate this. And here I'll create one more P. And within this, I'll create li. Sorry, not li. B. Within this, I'll create I. Within this, I'll create some content. Okay. And I'll do the same thing. I'll duplicate it. But what I'll do, I'll make it as a section instead of div. I'll make it as a section. So forget about the above sections, whatever we created, just concentrate on these two sections, changes and all. Okay. And let me do keep some paragraphs. Okay. So also I'll create so now just imagine what we did. We created a div and a section. Okay, after the div I have one paragraph, and after the div section I have 3 paragraphs. Okay, after div. Let me give one more here. Let me mention it like after section. So let's get back to the browser. So if you see, these are my elements. Okay. So now what I'll do, I'll use the general sibling selector. Okay. So it will be indicated with which symbol? Asterisk. So div is the symbol asterisk, we call it. Okay. Paragraph. I give color as, tell me a different color. Aqua I'll use. Okay. Just see div asterisk. Okay. P. Now if you see, which all elements get selected? Which are all the elements get selected?
Paragraphs after events.
So, but why the before paragraphs are not getting selected? So what this adjacent sibling selector will tell is, sorry, general, right? So what this general sibling selector will tell is, for example, just imagine I have a whole web page. Half web page I want to give one font family for the paragraph, and half I need to give one paragraph. Sorry, one font family. So what this general sibling will tell is, wherever you select me, from that particular point, everywhere I'll add your styles. That means what I'm telling, I have a div here. I was mentioning whichever the paragraphs that I'll get after this div, not inside the div, not before the div, after the div. That means after this div, which are outside, not inside the elements. Again, I was mentioning clearly. If you see, after this div also I have paragraphs inside, and within the section also I have paragraphs, but these are not getting selected. Is these are getting selected? Only the paragraphs which are outside of the div. Okay, that and all will be get selected after this div. Even for example, if I have a h1 here, okay, some two, and after that, if I have a paragraph also, is it going to select or not? Is it going to get selected or not? Tell me, this element will get color or not? Now tell me here which all elements will get selected now. This one is already selected, we know, these three, right? Now this will get selected or not?
No, sir.
Why it will not get selected?
In between H1 tag is there, sir.
Here also in between section and div is there. But still this paragraph is getting selected or not? Now tell me whether it will get selected or not. Loud.
It will get selected.
Confirm answer I needed. So is it get selected or not? So that is the power of general sibling. So what it is doing, as I mentioned, it doesn't care whichever element is before or after. It only cares is after this particular div, wherever I have a paragraph in open source. Open source in the sense, not within any element. Okay, it will select all those paragraphs. Even in front of my paragraph, I have a H3 or anything it may be. It will select, but it will not gonna select elements which are there inside. Got it? Clear? So if you check clearly, it is similar as a child selector. Understood? Child selector, what it is doing? It was selecting all the elements which are there directly to the child. But child selector will select the elements which are there inside of it. But this general sibling will select which are there outside of it, direct to it. That means if you see, this P is directly to the div, but is it outside or inside? Inside. But this paragraph, is it direct to div or not? Direct only. But is it there inside or outside? Outside. Same way. Here also, if you see, this paragraph is direct to this div and section. It is directly to div also. So if you see, these open elements are direct to any element that is there in this page. So even that paragraph is direct to this UL also. Why? Because this UL is also one different tag. okay, and have a direct relation. You can see both at a time or not. So these paragraphs which are there written openly, these are open to any time, right? So that is a, for example, if I give, make a small change like you will this, now tell me what happens. See, it is going to select all the things, even the top one, which were a given border. So within the UL, after the UL, I have these many paragraphs, right? So it is going, but we have given few other change styles to this one, other selectors. So that's why it's not mentioning. So now let me do one thing. Let me comment out all this. Okay, remaining are headings, right? Not paragraphs. Sorry, that's why it was not taking. So let me, if I create here, if I create paragraph here, yeah. So if I go back, see, is it getting selected or not? So different selector, why it was getting before these above elements are not getting selected, but these are getting selected now. Why? Because I made a small change. Before I was selecting whichever the paragraphs that is come after the div. But now I have mentioned whichever the paragraphs that comes after my UL. As UL is on the top, so it is going to select all the paragraphs whichever comes after that UL until down. Okay. So that's how my general sibling selector will work. But the same way, in the same way, my selector, uh, adjacent sibling selector also work. So which will be indicated by symbol of plus symbol. But the only difference is here my general sibling selector is going to select all the elements whichever comes after my particular selected point, but my adjacent sibling select only the first coming element. That means, for example, let me give div plus p. So if you see how many elements get selected, only one element. So why? Because my how my adjacent sibling selector will work is I'll also select the adjacent element, that means which comes after me, but I'll select only one particular element which comes immediately after to me. For example, after this div, let me put a h1. So now if you see, is any item is getting selected? Why? Because no paragraph is immediate next to the div. If you see, after this div, immediately I have a h1, not a paragraph. After here anywhere I don't have any div, right? So if you see ul, we'll do the same thing with ul plus p. Ul plus p I given. Now if you see, where is it? This paragraph, right? Let me comment it. I don't want any class. See, this one is getting selected because it was immediately next to the ul. For example, if I create h1 here, now what happened? The same element is not getting selected. So the adjacent sibling selector, how it will work? It will check for the next immediate element. Is it available or not? So if it is available, it will select only that first particular occurrence. If it is not, the first element is not that one, automatically it is useless style now. Got it? Okay. So that's how my adjacent sibling and general sibling will work. So what is the major difference between sibling and adjacent sibling is the general sibling will tell that wherever you mention my point, after that I'll select all the elements. but general sibling will, sorry, adjacent sibling will tell that I'll select only first coming element after to me. That too, if it is direct to me or not. If it is not direct to me, I'll not select. If it's direct to me, then I'll select. But at general sibling, what it will tell whether you are direct to me or not to me. If you are come after me, how many tags we may have in between? Okay, I have a div and in between I have a h1 paragraph, many things. But I have a h3. I given like div asterisk h3. It will directly select that h3. It will not care which are the elements are there in between. Got it? But one more condition is it is not going to select elements which are there inside of any other element. It will select only elements which are there outside. Got it? Is it clear? Anybody have any doubts? Online people, offline people, anybody have any doubts? Online people, I'm asking you people. Ravi, Niyanta, Manikanta.
No, sir. No, sir.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
What about offline people? Everyone clear? So it may be little tricky. If you see, the selecting of elements is almost similar, all the elements, but based on the scenario, whatever the based on different usages and the way how we want to select that element, we'll use the selectors. Okay. So, but whatever that at last, each and whatever the selector you may choose, the output is same. What we are doing? We are just selecting the elements. Okay. So next, so we'll be winding our session today here. Next, we'll be selecting about tomorrow pseudo elements and pseudo classes. Okay. Pseudo selectors. Simply to say these are nothing but pseudo selectors. So what is your tomorrow's task is? First one, check completely about pseudo selectors. Okay. Second one is not can you. Okay. So just work on that enough for now. Okay. Try to check these pseudo selectors. Okay. So tomorrow we'll be discussing two topics. Okay. Check positions. Positions is one of the topic, and also third one is check model box. So what is meant by this model box? Okay. Try to check these three things. Okay. And also check layout systems. Flex and grid. So I want you people to check all these four. I don't know which topic I'll start tomorrow. I'll start with pseudo elements, but it's not a big topic. It will get clear very quickly. So then I'll choose any one of these topics. Okay. Try to check these topics and also try to go through each and every selector. Okay. So it may be look very easy now, but if you don't go in depth, every time you will end up by using writing multiple classes only. Okay. Classes is not the only selector we have. We have multiple selectors now. Okay, like a group selectors, adjacent selectors, sibling selectors. You can select these elements and you can write a very less code and you'll get more output. Try to check how you can do that. Okay. I want you people to check all these selectors today, and also I want you people to check these topics: positions, model box, flex and grid. Got it? So if anybody have any doubts in HTML and CSS until we discuss, feel free to ask, okay? Or else you can leave. Is it clear for online people?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Okay, then have a nice day. See you all. Bye.